understand when they see the police officers out there on the line, as they are right now as we're talking, trying to keep peace. They are doing the best they can in an extremely, extremely difficult situation. And this goes across the country, and they need your support. I would argue that it's not the amount of police officers that we have. We need support. We need help from the criminal justice system. And you talked about divisiveness, I think, and coming together. We need everyone to come together at this extremely, extremely difficult time, passionate, charged time. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that that is exactly the only way that we can get out of this, whether it's police officials, community leaders, elected officials, coming together, finding a way out of this, because it is a dark time right now.
It is indeed, Commissioner. I want to ask you about something that John Miller told the New York Times, and that is that regards the organization behind a lot of this violence and the looting. Apparently, before the protests started in New York, some of the organizers of anarchist groups started raising money for bail, recruited medical teams to deploy for violent interactions with the police, and planned how to target high-end stores. Commissioner, if you would, talk a little bit about, as we look at live pictures from Lower Manhattan right now, talk, if you would, Commissioner, about the organization and these anarchist groups.
So John spoke on that yesterday. That's accurate. We have seen evidence of that. And I think you're seeing, when you see organized people showing up to protest. We had individuals again last night showing up with Molotov cocktails. We had an incident where a police car was shot at last night in Queens. When you see incidents like this turn in a very rapid fashion, again, you touched on it. There is evidence of an organization at times behind some of this activity. There is also what you see last night in terms of the looting. People taking an opportunity at the worst time, at the time that we all need to come together. So it's a little bit of both, but the answer to your question is that there absolutely have been influences. And people need to recognize.
Go ahead.
I would just finish with, people need to recognize that and step back, take a look at really what's going on. This is an extremely charged situation. We all saw that video. If you weren't disgusted by that video, I don't know what to say. It was a terrible act. It was swift action. The officer is being held accountable, and I know that's not the whole story. There is a history of prior incidents, and this is not just about one incident. But we have to get out of this together. And if you look at some of the things that have been said, it's really disturbing. The day after we have officers sitting in a car with Molotov cocktails thrown at them, the first inclination is to judge officers and how they're responding. Let's take a look at the big picture here and get out of this together.
Yeah, so Commissioner, when does it stop? How does it stop? What's the solution here?
It's going to stop from the ground. It's going to stop from the ground up. We've already seen some evidence of this here in New York, where people from the communities and the police officers working together. I saw evidence of people from the communities coming out and getting into fights with protesters just last night. Not to do this in our communities. So it's going to take that type of action to stand up. This will be the law enforcement, as always, at the front, leading the way in many respects. But if it's a law enforcement only action, that's when I know that it's going to take more than that.
All right, Commissioner, Mayor de Blasio has asked you to use, reportedly, according to the Brian Lehrer show, said this, to use a light touch. I really believe that the NYPD knows how to handle protests and respect whoever's protesting, but I want to see a light touch because people are undeniably angry for a reason. Really, a light touch, and they've wrecked just about every major block in New York City. Is that hampering and hamstringing your men and women's ability to police this city?
Well, we know how to be very fluid. And when you talk about a light touch, we actually go into protests that way. If you look at yesterday in New York City, we had thousands and thousands of people protesting all day and not really an incident. Whether it was Brooklyn, whether it was Queens, whether it was here in Manhattan, People were standing, they were voicing concern. At times they were kneeling and walking together with the officers, not always. Sometimes there was some agitation, but it was exactly as how it should. We believe in a light touch. We are also very capable to respond to multiple situations, and every situation is fluid. So we will deal with whatever is in front of us, and we'll deal with it in court.
All right. Commissioner Shea, we thank you very much for joining us on a very, very busy day here in the New York City area. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my daily blog. I've been doing this out here the last couple weeks, so I just figured I'd keep doing it. So I was listening to some of the coverage on the peaceful protest that was basically, let's just say, anarchists joined in and caused a lot of damage. Because we know there was, in fact, a peaceful protest. I was watching video of some of it. I also watched video of this young black couple, that was driving in a car and they got attacked by the police. And there's just so many different stories coming out of this. Each story has an element of racism. There's no question in my mind that what happened in Atlanta was hard to describe. I mean, you saw two young couple driving, didn't look like they were bothering anybody, and the police bashed in their window, deflated their tires. It's actually scary to see what some of us have been through with different law enforcement matters. Not all law enforcement issues have ever gotten ugly or violent, but I'm going to tell you, I don't want to encounter law enforcement, and a lot of people feel this way. And so I was watching some of the video from Black Lives Matter. Ironically, it's not just Black Lives Matter. This happens to a lot of people. They feel like they're in a surveillance state, which is in fact what the 5G was about. And no one said that disagreeing with law enforcement is an illegal thing. There's nothing illegal with disagreeing with the tactics. But what happened with these little incidents as a result of George Floyd, and I talk about minor, I don't know what those two did in Atlanta when they were driving through the crowd to have their windows bashed in by police. There are so many different situations and scenarios. Now, there are, in a lot of cases, looting, which is illegal. I mean, I think we could tell the difference between right and wrong. But it starts to get really blurry when you start to ask the questions that why would law enforcement use any physical force, and the way they handle that matter up there in Minnesota would be no different here. You don't want somebody shooting somebody in the back. There are things that law enforcement are trained to do. And we just pray that our law enforcement, especially in situations where there may be harassment with police officers or hanging up on the phone or any small or minor incident, that it would be resolved peacefully and civilly. I think this is the only time that I want to introduce the court of public opinion, because I know that when judges are involved in the decisions that go on the street, judges can tell when they're talking to people, watching video. They can get a better view of what's going on. It's not all one-sided. We're not saying it's just law enforcement issues. There's issues on both sides, except there is an exception. Sorry. There's an exception. Every matter is different from the other. The bottom line is, it was obvious this was racially motivated, because he was a black man, and what happens to black folks does matter. When somebody tries to threaten you because of your color or your race, or make fun of you, or any kind of bullying of any kind, it's going to be problematic. It would be like denying the MLK march. I believe this is what Martin Luther King said, that we would come hand in hand and we would lock arms and peacefully demonstrate. The only problem is you got anarchists that are taking full advantage of this situation. Because I'm going to end my blog there. My prayer is with the people that are trying to demonstrate peacefully. My goodness, I hope, just be careful out there, okay? Don't take the risk of getting hurt and injured. Thank you for listening.